All right, we're about to get started. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Okay, let's check on the sound here. Okay, we are live indeed. All right, welcome to week 34 of Bible Day Live, where we are all year going through the Bible in chronological order. Why chronological order? Because I found it was a complete game changer for me to go through the Bible in chronological order, putting the stories and the peoples together as well as the concepts together. So that really helped me. And so now every year I've been going through the Bible again in chronological order. And I don't think it will ever end because the Bible is inexhaustible, absolutely inexhaustible. So this week I did want to say, if you don't have a chronological reading plan, there is one at BibleRoom.org. You can use that King James Version reading plan, and you also can use the King James Version, or you can use whatever version that makes sense to you. Because what I believe is when you engage with the word, you will naturally grow spiritually, and you will ask questions and you will dig deeper, and that will take you into different resources, and it will take you into prayer, and your arsenal of things that you refer to and that you trust will change. So don't worry about what version it is. Just start and let the word do what only the word can do. So we are going to go back here, and we're going to start with this slide here. Now, now this is a image that I generated with one of the AI tools. And AI is not really good with letters for whatever reason. Isn't it interesting that the thing that they struggle with the most is the letters in the words? Like, they do really well with typed words, but when it comes to generating images, they don't get the words right. I think that's very interesting. That's one of the things they don't do well. Well, one of the things, trying to get my fan on, it's like hot in here. One of the things that I had to do with this one is I had to squeeze an eye in here. I did use Affinity Photo to do that. I used to use Photoshop, but they have this subscription model now. But Affinity Photo, I have found that I can do whatever I need to do with Affinity Photo, um, just like I was doing in Photoshop, and it was a one-time price, and that sounded way better to me. So I ended up having to put the I in there. I just took a little piece off of the H that looked like an I and squeezed it in there. I think it looks pretty cool. So the reason I have this symbol on here with the markets is because doesn't this chart look like what April looked like when the when tariff liberation day happened? I mean, that's like so many charts. That's what so many charts look like. Just this is exact chart. And I put this on here because it reminded me of this week. This week we have been all just held hostage, it felt like, by what the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell was going to say in his speech at Jackson Hole. We were cautious, I didn't have the conviction to throw caution to the wind or anything like that, but I did put on a little position, and at the closing bell on Friday, I was happy with how it was performing. But this one man seemed to hold up the whole market. Now I know it is the USA market, but still, the reason we pay attention to the Bible, to the Word of God, is because we want to be reminded that whatever else is going on in the world, we need to zoom out and consider God's perspective on what is happening. And staying in the Word, doing regular devotionals, this keeps us constantly reminded to, number one, hide the Word in our hearts, and number two, acknowledge the Lord in everything that we do. So this is week 34, and this, if you remember from a few weeks back, this little symbol here that's moving is my reminder that next year I want to change the soundtrack for this week, because I don't really like the way that this is broken up as far as the story goes when you start putting the story together. So this is just my reminder that next year I want to tweak this a little bit. But for this week and this soundtrack, we were in Jeremiah 9 through 31. Now, when I say soundtrack, I mean that the chronological reading plan that we have is attached to a YouTube channel that has these soundtracks broken down into like daily sessions, 5 days a week. The YouTube channel is actually called the 5 Day Bible, but it breaks those down in chronological order, and that is what is used in the reading plan that is at BibleRoom.org. It is the King James Version, but like I said, you can use whatever version you like. And this reminder for me is I'm going to recut those to match the way I think the stories should be presented, like in a better timeline cutoff, according to where the stories naturally break and all of that. So that's my little reminder there to do that on that slide right there. So this is the soundtrack for this week, broken down into 5 daily sessions of about 20 minutes a day. And we do that all throughout the Bible. Oh, I meant to take that off of there, the little chart. We do that all throughout the Bible. And by the end of the year, we've completed the entire Bible, Old Testament and the New Testament. Okay, so let's talk about Jeremiah. He was commissioned as a prophet to the nations even before he was received, even before he was conceived. That is awesome. While he was in the womb, before he was in the womb. What is the verse? I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Now, for all those people who think that we weren't formed and created and a real thing before, this says it right here. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. How is that for a calling? And of course, Jeremiah was like reluctant, like, Lord, I can't do this. I'm just a child. I'm really not really ready to take on this responsibility. And the Lord touched his lips and says, I will be with you. I will speak through you. I will give you the words to say. They're going to come against you, but I am going to be with you. So Jeremiah's ministry began. Now, his ministry was 40 years, and it centered in Judah, the region of the tribes of Benjamin and Judah surrounding Jerusalem. So the southern kingdom was called Judah, and also the region around Jerusalem was called Judah. And that consisted of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. So Judah, like Israel, is another one of those words that you really have to take in context to really understand what's happening. His ministry was during the reigns of the last 5 kings of Judah, and his ministry began the 13th year of King Josiah. King Josiah, remember, was one of the good kings. Good meaning he followed the Lord. And Josiah was called the revivalist. And here you can see this is the area we're talking about around Jerusalem. Now, these are the last 5 kings: Josiah, Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah. This whole purple line here is the royal line of the Messiah, the Davidic dynasty, the southern kings of Judah. And then in the black are the prophets that were active during these kings. The orange are the kings that were in the northern kingdom, in also called Israel, not the man Israel, not Jacob, who was renamed Israel, but the northern kingdom that was called Israel. It's also called Ephraim. It's also called Samaria. And in black are the prophets that worked during these kings' reigns. Now, we're at week 34, and we're down here in Josiah's reign with Jeremiah's ministry starting. Now, this chart is the kings of Israel, and it is very helpful for keeping the names straight. This was the chart that I adopted the other one from. The reason I keep both of them in here is because this one has some things that mine doesn't. But overall, I would say, yeah. Well, but mine has some things that this one doesn't. But this was the base one. And I still think it's pretty good. It's clear. I love the colors, all of that. Now, we are in week 34, and here is the end of the kings. Now, if we go back to this chart here, the last king that we see here is Jehoiakim. This king right here, Jehoiakim, K-I-M. Here, Jehoiakim, K-I-M. And then the next name we see is Jeconiah. Jeconiah. Well, was that a king? Okay, let's go back. Jeconiah. You know what? In little bitty writing, under Jehoiachin, C-H-I-N, right here is the name Jeconiah. So that means that Jehoiachin was also called Jeconiah. Well, what we're going to do our next time through the Bible is make these references match so that on this chart, if we're going to use Jeconiah on this chart, we need to use Jeconiah on the other chart. So at least in from our reference frame, we know we're talking about the same person. Because so many times the Bible has the same name, but it's really a different person. And sometimes it's the same name and it's the same person. But in this case, it's different names, but it's the same person, but we want to be referring to them in our resources with the same name. So that was something I caught too for our next time through. And I am sure that you can see and imagine that we could really be going through the Bible for the rest of our lives. There are people that devote their entire working careers to using the Bible, um, studying parts of it, becoming experts in a particular facet of the word. I don't think that's where I'm headed, but my desire and my aim in doing these devotionals on this platform is to make sure and to hold myself accountable, because I've got a scheduled event coming up for I am being accountable to make sure that I am including the word in my daily activities. It I want the word to become as much a part of my day as getting dressed or waking up or eating breakfast. It is just what happens just naturally. It becomes a part of what our life just looks like. And that is the intent here. Okay, so here's another new track indicator for me. Like I was saying, if we're going to have Jehoiachin in this reference, and this was the Kings of Israel chart, in this reference here, we need to have the same name, be referring to the same name. Okay, so sons of King Jehoiakim. Now, the thing I noticed here we have Jehoiakim and we have Jeconiah. I think I am almost persuaded that I'm going to use Jeconiah just so I don't have to keep making a really, really hard emphasis on Jehoiakim, Kim, or Jehoiachin, Chim, these two. Because Jeconiah sounds way different than these two names. And so I think that's what I'm going to do there is just name it Jehoiakim for the father and his son. Call him by the Jeconiah name. Because he's called Jeconiah, he's also called Coniah. So he was called like 3 different names. And here we see that reference. Jehoiachin, also called Jeconiah or Coniah. He succeeded Jehoiakim as king of Judah at age 18. He reigned only 3 months before being taken captive to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. His name appears in the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1:11 through 12. Now, I'm just curious. Should I try to look that up? Matthew 1, 11 through 12. Now, let's see if I can do this live here without making too much of a fuss. I'm going to bring up my Bible here and see, can we see that? Okay, I'm going to bring this up and see, can we go to this verse? And we're going to stop screen share, and we're going to start screen share, and we're going to share the screen. We're going to share this window right here and see what we get. Okay, there we go. Did I have that up there the whole time? I don't know. Okay, so let's go to Matthew 1, 11 through 12. Oh, we don't, well, that's how you change versions. This is just the YouVersion app. So we want to go here and go down to Matthew 1, 11 through 12. And Josias begot Jeconias and his brethren about the time they were carried away to Babylon. And after they were brought to Babylon, Jeconias begot Salathiel, and Salathiel begot Zerubbabel. Okay, that's the King James Version. Let's see what the NLT says. How that. Did you notice the name changes? The spelling of the names, how they're different, but how the scholars have pointed out there that these are the same names. Josiah was the father of Jehoiachin. That's the way we're used to it being spelled. And his brothers, born at the time of the exile to Babylon. After the Babylonian exile, Jehoiachin was the father of Shealtiel. Shealtiel was the father of Zerubbabel. And then we get Abiud, Eliakim, Azor, Zadok. Okay, so let's switch back and go back to our slide. And let's compare those two. Okay, here we go. Matthew 1 and 11. But what we really want to look at is this. Those are those same names. So after the king, Jeconiah, then we get his other sons. And this was one of the sons, Shealtiel, Zerubbabel, Abiud, Eliakim, Azor. We saw those. So these guys were not kings. They were actually sons. Sons, father, son, father, son, father, son. And the way this chart works, and I don't know if I'm going to leave it like this because it's kind of, you really have to watch these arrows here, how it's going, it goes from Ahaziah, then it rounds down, and then it comes up. You have to do it like that. So, that's something, that's like a design preference, but you have to remember that too, or else you'll want to be going from the top to the bottom here, but this is actually Manasseh was Hezekiah's son and Amon was Manasseh's son. So you have to remember to go from the bottom at some of these, which is not exactly natural. But we'll see how the layout goes that we do. Okay, so to go back to this screen here, it is the son, Shealtiel, mentioned in genealogies, father, or possibly adoptive father. Okay, some scholars think Shealtiel may have been Jehoiachin's son, but First Chronicles 3 lists him as Jehoiakim's son. Okay, and then this Zedekiah here. And that was the last king that was on there. Zedekiah, not to be confused with King Zedekiah, Jehoiakim's uncle. So this was the sons of Jehoiakim, and he had a son named after his uncle, which is his prerogative. And then there were other sons that would mention. So that's keeping the name straight so that when we are remembering things, we actually have them in the right order. Okay. So the 40-year ministry, back to the 40-year ministry of Jeremiah. The Lord told him right up front, they're going to fight against you, but they will not prevail against you. Okay, but he was beaten and imprisoned and thrown in a muddy cistern, and he sank down into the mud, into the filthy mire. He sank down into that. They had left him there to die. And he was also kidnapped to Egypt. He was forced to go to Egypt. But the Lord told him at the beginning of his ministry, they're going to fight against you, but they will not prevail. Now, what kind of faith do you have to have when you have been left to die in a big old long deep well that has no water in it, and you are sinking down into the mud of that well? You have to think back. The Lord told me that they are not going to prevail. So Lord, give us the heart and the strength and the remembrance and the conviction that at those times we remember, I told you they are not going to prevail. So how many of us want to, at that moment, be thinking, I know I'm not dying here. The Lord said they weren't going to prevail, so somebody's coming for me. Somebody is coming for me. Lord, help me be that person, right? Okay, 40-year ministry, messages of judgment to 9 neighboring nations in addition to Judah. He gave messages of judgment to 9 neighboring nations, and more than 100 times he calls for repentance. He was mistreated for faithfully speaking God's word. Yes, he had laments and complaints, but he was persistent and consistent. What a testimony. These are some of Jeremiah's trials. He was beaten and put in stocks, imprisoned in the house of the secretary, thrown into a cistern. We mentioned that one. Inside the prison court, he was rescued by the Ethiopian court official. That he actually went to the king and said, "Y'all shouldn't be doing that to Jeremiah. He's going to die down there." So he intervened and he was given permission to pull Jeremiah out of that cistern with ropes and rags. But after pulling him out, he was confined in the courtyard of the guard. He could not speak with the king or the people, and he was released by the Babylonians after the fall of Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar ordered Jeremiah's release and protection. Why was he imprisoned? During the final days of Judah under King Zedekiah, the Babylonians were besieging Jerusalem. And besieging meant that they had Jerusalem surrounded. Nothing goes out, nothing comes in. There's no food being had that wasn't already in there. So eventually, they just starve them to death, or until they surrender. The conditions are so harsh. Jeremiah prophesied that surrendering to the Babylonians was the only way to save their lives. But the king and his officials, it was really his officials, that said that Jeremiah was a traitor and that he was discouraging the soldiers and weakening morale. And so they wanted him silenced. Now, this is Anathoth, which is where Jeremiah was born. Anathoth was a Levitical city. It is 3 miles, like right around here, northeast of Jerusalem. And it was allocated to the descendants of Aaron, and that is Jeremiah's birthplace. Joshua 21:18. This is when it was talking about giving Anathoth to the children of Aaron the priest. All of these other cities, and here is where it mentions Anathoth with her suburbs. The book of Jeremiah is the book of the Bible with the most words. It has 52 chapters, while Isaiah has 66 chapters, and it is a non-chronological collection. So when reading it, you have to be prepared to kind of jump all over the place and keep yourself where you can know when it's talking about a future event, a current event, a past event, kind of like you had to do with Isaiah. Okay, so it's not in chronological order, but we know how to handle that. We know that by taking notes and doing all those kinds of things. Okay, and of course, this is the last slide, that we are here at the exile period of our big picture time frame. Okay, so that is my devotional for this week. I hope something here was said that encourages you, and I would like to especially thank you for this time together. And I look forward to next week, God willing. And I hope you stay blessed, abundantly blessed. Take care.